expressing my appreciation and sadness to Al upon the occasion of her departure from the best DA Appeals Bureau in the state. I would like to thank especially Barbara and Hilda. They saw to it that every detail of this luncheon would be just perfect for you. And I'd like to thank also David and Andrea for their help with the plaque that it will soon be my pleasure to present. Every party is dependent upon the behind-the-scenes work of the party planners. And boy, did our bureau need a party. It's been 2 full years without a full bureau appeals party. And as most of you know, we are a bureau who enjoys celebrations. Who takes our colleagues to lunch to celebrate milestones, who enjoys monthly breakfast when we had them and enjoyed them. We take our new members out to lunch because we like to formally welcome them. We are a bureau, as you know, who shares both happy times and sad times together. And throughout this pandemic, things just did not seem quite right without these celebrations. So today really marks a new beginning of sorts. Certainly a new beginning for Al, and also a new beginning for the rest of the Appeals Bureau, who will have to move on in her absence. And it's also a renewed beginning for a bureau who can go back to celebrating together the way it should be, even if some of us show a few remnants of the pandemic in our appearances. I'd like to thank the beginning presentation by Barbara and Hilda. I'd like to thank Andrea for hers. And I'd like to thank Dan for his. Next, I'd like to welcome those of you who might be new to appeals celebrations, although you likely won't see the humor in our discussion of punctuation marks, such as M dashes, and such things as brackets that we like to see within parentheses. Sometimes it is so great to have all of you here. And I'm especially glad that our district attorney, Ann Donnelly, could come by, and the chief assistant, Monica Hickey, could come by and wish you well. I'm also delighted that Lara Bernstein is here with us today, our new director of training and recruitment. May be the first of many celebrations with us. I am really delighted to welcome back some of our former colleagues and friends, including Steve and Jed and Doug and Christy. It is just so nice to see all of you again and to all be here together to celebrate your Al. In addition, I too would like to welcome Josh Needleman, your Al's husband, and say it's really nice for you to be here, see how much we all appreciate all the hard work over the years, and to let you know how fortunate we all are, especially your Al, to have had your support over the years when your Al left your house so early in the morning, spirited and well energized, and came home really exhausted at the end of a long day. And now on to the guest of honor. It has been my great pleasure to work with Al since she first came to the Nassau DA's office in 2010. From our very first meeting, we really hit it off. We began sharing stories about our careers, our families, even some of our egalitarian views about our shared religion. I often say that our appeals bureau is like one big happy extended family. But that family has really grown and developed with your assistance and with your leadership. You and I have shared appellate philosophies, brief writing philosophies, and if there is such a thing, grammatical philosophies. I personally edited most of your writings, and I look forward to it each and every time. And I learn from you as well. Such things as the benefits of using bullets to make things a little bit more snappy, and that there is a place, even in brief writing, for short, punchy sentences. Something I'll always look back on is when we weren't sure about a grammatical or punctuation mark. You would even go go back to your office and call your mother the grammarian, and I would pick up the phone and call my father the English department chairperson, and we would convene at the end of the day and continue sharing the different views and always arrive at a consensus that we both agreed with. This is actually something I never did with anyone else in the Bureau.
It's in our blood.
Dare I say no one else in the Bureau would care so much as we did about these types of little picayune matters. I particularly enjoyed working with CLEs with you. And I enjoyed it when we did it together, but I more so enjoyed when you practiced your planned CLEs with me. And we would sit in the conference room and we'd do a run through, and I would have the clock and I would time it. I would study the PowerPoint slides, each one of them as you put them up, and I'd listen carefully, and each time I would always learn something from you. Each topic that you prepared, it was explored so comprehensively. And in your preparation, there was always such a wealth of knowledge and valuable information that you imparted. If any child ABA in our office has developed the skills that would make you think this is a really great record on appeal, it is likely because of your instructions and training over the years. While some of the Bureau managers in appeals have had to give up their own brief writing as a consequence of all the other work that was placed before us, the AL never stopped writing. And it really was my tremendous pleasure to review that work. Over the years, Yael has worked on some of the most important cases. She argued before the Court of Appeals several times. If my desk is a mess right now, it's because I opened up all the books of all the cases that we worked on in the Court of Appeals and other cases. But going back first to Franklin Hughes, where you convinced the Court of Appeals to affirm the defendant's weapon conviction for possession of an unlicensed gun and his 3.5-year prison sentence, despite very strong constitutional Second Amendment challenges and claims that the sentence received was draconian. And in People versus Janai Washington, who made a typical Yael Levy impassioned argument that should have been successful, convincing me and, among others, Maureen McCormick. Well, actually, Maureen didn't need much convincing. But nonetheless, you wrote a really persuasive brief arguing that the breathalyzer test results were improperly suppressed, where the defendant had independently consented to take the test without first seeking legal advice from an attorney who wasn't even in on the case in the first place. And of course, in Flanagan, Dan mentioned, you really helped shape the law in New York on conspiracy and official misconduct, both by malfeasance and by nonfeasance. If you ever talk to Yael about the brief, she won't just say official misconduct. She'll always say official misconduct, both by malfeasance and nonfeasance. It sort of became part of any conversation about the case. You produced terrific documents in the Eastern District of New York on some very challenging and unusual habeas matters. And during the lead fiasco, I can still hear former DA Kathleen Rice directing Yael that she must drop everything, and I mean everything you're working on, to pick up that Erin Marino case that Judge Peck had just dismissed on a 330-30 motion, take a people's appeal, and you must convince the appellate court that that decision should be vacated. And convince them she did. As a side note, after 1 month into Yael's research on the matter, Yael knew everything, and I mean everything that there is to know about a pipette. And calculation of a pipette. And I'm sure today she could go on if she wanted to about everything that she learned that many years ago.
It's gone.
One other case I just wanted to highlight is People versus Louis Arcilla. In that case, Yael worked on 2 briefs. First, she was instrumental in advising and helping to formulate the arguments of former appeals ABA Jackie Rosenblum. Yes, great. They worked together on a case that charged official misconduct against an off-duty Hempstead police officer who touched a woman inappropriately and illegally while displaying his badge. Together, she and Jackie produced a really terrific brief that convinced the appellate division that the officer's conduct was sufficient to support the grand jury's indictment on a charge of official misconduct. The case was sent back for a trial, and indeed the officer was convicted. The defendant was convicted. Was also convicted of endangering the welfare of a child, as the victim's child was present during the crime. But what was my especial pleasure were editing the judgment appeal brief after that conviction. Jackie was no longer in the bureau, and when I even say that I'm editing Yael, as Yael knows, my edits of her were absolutely nothing like her edits of all of you. Because the most that I would do is maybe suggest a word here or there. Did you think about this word? If you think it's better, you could use it. And as I mentioned, I frequently tried to convince her to use brackets inside of parentheses, and I'm sure Bronx will be very happy to use parentheses and parentheses. And we'll go back to
nested parentheses.
We would do this. But that particular brief, that direct appeal, I may not have remembered the defendant's name right away, but I remember that brief like it was yesterday. Yael chose each and every word so carefully, something that Dan mentioned before, with such precision to the points that she was making. And I just wanted to share with you the very first lines of the brief in the introduction, so those of you who are not as familiar with her writing will see what an Yael Levy brief begins with. Stories of powerful men taking advantage of vulnerable women have been much in the news lately. Sadly, this case is another such story. It is the story of a police officer who used his badge late at night to gain access to an automobile in which a woman sat with her 2 young children, waiting for her nephew to pick up a takeout order. It is the story about how women, in deference to the police badge, rolled down the car window, enabling the officer to reach inside, unlock the door, and gain entrance. It is the story of how the officer entered the car uninvited and sexually molested the woman as her 10-year-old daughter watched in horror. It is the story of how the woman's efforts to report the officer's misconduct to his own police department went largely unheeded. And it is the story of the lasting psychological trauma that the experience caused the woman and her daughter. In short, it is the story of an all too common scenario that will recur unless public officials like this one are held accountable. And with that, the brief begins. To no one's surprise, except maybe the defendant, the appellate division quickly and unanimously affirmed the judgment of conviction. And Yael's very talented writings continued outside the appellate courts. Yael has published numerous scholarly articles on really all sorts of topics. I still hope that one day you and I will complete our article together on the importance of hearing from a defense attorney before a court finds the attorney incompetent. And I will always remember the article that you wrote about your father after you took that trip with him back to Cuba. Or the reminiscent email that you sent to Judge Kendler's widow, highlighting why you found working for him to be such an important and invaluable part of your legal career. Yael, you have an unbelievable talent to use words the way you do, to create a vivid image in your reader's mind of exactly what you were hoping to convey in your writing. And I'd like to touch just briefly on Yael's editing over the past decade or so. As deputy in the Bureau, Yael edited a very significant share of the Bureau's brief and motions. Dan touched on this, but when Yael was assigned as an editor, she took on each project with this unbelievable energy and passion. In fact, the worst thing you could ever say to Yael is that you thought a particular point or claim was not so interesting to you. Yael wanted to meet with the writer in advance of the writer's drafting, after the writer had made a careful review of the record. She wanted to sit down and discuss the issues at length and the arguments that could be made and the counter-arguments to those arguments and the counter-arguments and the responses to all the different claims and sub-claims that would come up in a defendant's brief. Sometimes these conferences could take what really seem like hours to those of us working nearby in our not-so-thickly walled offices. But what really stood out to me, and those you edited, is that in each case, even each plea appeal, each case where there was an analysis of a waiver of appeal, each reasonable doubt claim, each of the literally hundreds of more complex legal points, in each and every one, Yael found something that was really interesting to her. And she imparted her interest with such zeal, such passion, that it became contagious in the way, and the writer would get excited to go back to his or her office and get ready to start drafting the brief. Yael, I will always admire the passion that you displayed in helping others to produce the best document that they could produce, no matter how many drafts you thought were necessary to accomplish that goal. And each writer, with the filing of the brief, would feel confident that the final product was so much better because of your assistance in helping to shape the legal issues, delete the unnecessary words, and keep the reader's attention throughout the document. And the great value of Yael's editing was met with equal persistence and zeal by the approach you took when you served as a moot court judge. You took a full day or two to study the briefs and legal arguments and propose truly challenging questions to ask the oral advocate. To my mind, you and only you would question the oral advocate on the legislative history related to the crimes or ask a question about principles of statutory construction. But by the end of the moot, which also could take many hours, the appeals ADA would feel totally prepared to go into court with a full command of the case and prepared answers to really virtually anything that could possibly come up during the argument. And none of this passion and energy was any less apparent than when you reviewed motions and minutes and decisions to determine whether it was best interest of the office to take a people's appeal or other affirmative action like an Article 78 proceeding. You truly studied a matter before making a recommendation, and it helped us to bring the appeals that really were the most appropriate ones, and the ones that were likely to be successful, or the ones that really presented a decent shot at convincing an appellate court to reverse course from a decision in a lower court, or even a decision in the appellate court's own jurisprudence. By working on these cases, you really helped to effect change in the law in New York in a way that would serve the criminal justice system and the people of the state of New York as well as any appellate practitioner ever could, and better than most have ever accomplished. I wanted to share one little anecdote about one of the important roles I entrusted Yael with in the Appeals Bureau. In appeals, we have a liaison list of areas of expertises that certain members of the Bureau have developed, either voluntarily because they keep working on the same issue, or because I might have assigned them to become an expert in an area that would come up over and over, so that if we got a quick call from a trial ADA in court, we could hopefully have a quick answer. And I was looking at this list late last night, and I started to chuckle when I looked at one of the things that I wrote under Yael's name. Some of us have an area of expertise like recusal, Parker warnings, post-release supervision was one of mine. But under Yael's name, I actually assigned her the entire Constitution. Putting aside my retrospective self-questioning about how I could assign one person to the entire Constitution, it does help to put into context the true value of your abilities, and even more so, the great extent of my faith in all that you do. To help you be ready for anything that you might encounter for your next position, I have prepared for you the Bronx DA Appeals Bureau Survival Kit. Although I put our NASA logo in the bottom so you won't forget your more recent roots. I'm going to just go through the things that I think you will need to be successful in your new job. Okay. So some of the things that I thought that you would need, actually, if you could just, perfect.
Oh my God.
First, I have a bag for you to take your work home with you every night. And then you may choose to put these items in it. I have for you all kinds of things to make you a success. I have red editing pens.
Oh, no.
I have the model brief that you can share, which is the Louis Arcilla brief.
Oh my God, Arcilla brief.
I have for you the Freedom of Information Law Manual.
I need to open the bag.
I have for you the Appeals Bureau Brief Writing Manual. And I also have for you this really great SOAR manual with all the cases attached. I have also for you a copy of the list of all of our expertises in the Bureau, and I know you can continue to reach out to anyone here when you have a question on any of those.
I just want to say I'll be sharing this with the Bronx DA's office. Everybody okay with that? Phone numbers included, okay?
I have a can of Coke because you drank Coke every afternoon, and then a special Starlight Coke because my Brian said you really deserve the special. For those of you who don't know, Yael is a snacker. Yael can eat little things all day long in her office, never gain even an ounce. So I have ready for you these nice Tupperware containers for you to bring your snacks in. I have chocolate kisses, which I know you enjoyed in my office. I have...
That's why I snack, because they're always in your office.
As someone mentioned, in the middle one, I have some homemade Hamantaschen. Yael loves to share her Hamantaschen. It's that time of year. I don't have anything special from Hawaii in the filling, but I hope you'll still find them a treat. I have for you a first aid kit.
Oh, thank you.
For those of you who don't know, Yael does get injured.
Take it to Argentina.
I have to look and see what I was thinking. Okay, this is a mask for your eyes because you will be able to sleep late in the morning and keep the sun out, since you won't have to make the trip to Nassau County.
Likely, I'll still be swimming at 5:30.
Gail used to love to snack on nuts and dried fruit and nuts, so she'll be ready with those snacks too.
I know.
Here's one of the little chocolates that I like to leave around the bureau this time of year, since you won't be here to receive yours. I have a bottle of kosher wine for your first Friday night after you get through your first week as appeals chief, because you will
need it.
definitely need to relax.
Thank you. I may not share that, Josh. Sorry.
More nuts, Gas X.
Oh, thank you.
There's a lot of stress that comes with this job, and you would be surprised how helpful that might be to you.
Thank you. I could have used that a couple of weeks ago when I
That will not cure appendicitis.
Yes, it will cure appendicitis.
Fig Newlands, because Yael really likes figs.
I do.
Natural lavender aromatherapy buds so that she can try to relax a little bit.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
I have a variation on the editing pen. There are certain studies I've been at. My bureau knows I've been doing all this research about calming and keeping the mood calm. They say in particular if you edit with purple, it will be calming for you and calming for your editees as opposed to the bright red.
Okay. Usually I use blue. Purple's good.
I have a Hershey's bar with the she highlighted for a really great woman leader. I have a new structured one with all the things that we've been discussing over all our years together.
I need that.
When somebody gives you a hard time and you start to say, in Nassau County we did it this way, because when Yael first came to Nassau, she used to say in Bronx we did it this way. So now when she says, in Nassau we did it this
What I'm going to
way,
be saying.
they won't have to worry that you're not a new person from the Bronx, a real Bronx girl. So it says you can take the girl out of the Bronx, but you can't take the Bronx out of the girl. So you can show them you're a true Bronx person. And the last thing I have,
Oh my God.
ironic, but for a different reason. This is the secret to my success. So when I'm up all night or I'm doing what I'm doing and I'm managing so many different things, the real secret is popping the bubbles. And you would be surprised how calming it can be. So hopefully all of these items will make you well prepared to be as successful as you possibly can be. And
Can't sit down anymore anyway, so.
all joking aside, no one knows better than I do that Yale will not need any Bronx DA survival kit. I'm quite confident that you have all the skills necessary not only to succeed, but to succeed in a truly extraordinary way. And the last thing I want to say is that for me, there are two different reasons why I love this job really more than anything, and I know you will too. One is working with people with really terrific appellate talent and such a high level of professionalism and commitment to their work. And the other is working with people who have become more than professional colleagues, but true friends. And when they both intersect, as they did with you and with me, the combination is just perfect. So I thank you for that, my deputy and my friend. And I am instructed that we will eat, and then I'll do the plaque, and we'll hopefully hear a few words from you.